Welcome to the A-Dub Club, a podcast about sci-fi, fantasy, technology, pop culture, the internet, and general nerdery. There are three things that are important to know. One, we occasionally use swear words, but try to stay in the range of PG-13, or at least the kind of R that cool parents are fine with. Two, we may talk spoilers. In this particular episode, we discuss Bo Burnham's Inside, so be warned. And finally, three, most importantly, Bo Burnham apparently directed a recent Chris Rock comedy special, which is nuts and pretty cool, I think. With that out of the way, welcome to the Clubhouse. We have snacks. Welcome to the A-Dub Club. I'm Andrew Whipple.
I'm Alex Wade.
And here we are on a lovely summer day inside. We're recording inside.
Puns on puns on puns, because that is what we're going to be reviewing today. Bo Burnham's relatively new special, Inside.
Indeed. Before we talk about that, how are you doing, Alex Wade?
I'm doing good. Summertime is a beautiful thing, and life has started back up again, although in theory there's a COVID spike going on right now that might make everything shut down again, but I'm going to be blissfully ignorant to that for a bit longer.
There you go, man. See, they just don't want us to stop doing pandemic specials. They just can't handle it. They can't handle it. Yeah, things are going well. Here in Chicago, though it's getting very hot and humid, which I guess is not surprising because that's what happens in the summer.
My air conditioner is on 24/7.
Yeah. But a lot of talking about what is inside our apartments. What if we switch to talking about this week's question, which is, hey, Alex Wade, what did you think about Bo Burnham's Inside?
I loved it. I've seen it 4 times now, once in theaters during its special release during the weekend, and then I also went and rewatched his past 2 specials.
Ooh, nice. I like it a lot. I watched it. I watched it twice. I saw it first when it first came out, and then rewatched it again this week, not in theaters. And then I did rewatch his specials this week.
Which I think this is the first time that I have been. I'm not going to say more prepared, but more versed, I guess, maybe more. Usually, you're the one who does a lot more work and rewatches episodes or stuff like that.
I know I'm failing at my job as connoisseur of context on the show. It's a fun little role reversal. So let's start with you. What do you love about Bo Burnham's Inside?
Yeah, I would say there are so many things about this that hit me in very deep ways that felt very personal. Of him being alone in his apartment and like inside. I feel like this special very much encapsulated what it meant to be in a pandemic. There's just a sense of having this entire thing be entirely encased and encompassed in one room, done by one person, written, directed, produced, singing, starring, etc., feels very pandemic because it was,
Yeah.
Also, I don't know how many spoilers. Do we want a spoiler-free version?
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, okay, overall, Chief Summarizer in Chief, Bo Burnham's Inside. It is a special that is on Netflix that you can go watch, where Bo Burnham, notable originally YouTube comedian turned comedian, and filmmaker, decided to start making a special in the middle of the pandemic in his guest house that he was going to do all by himself because, there's a pandemic going on. Probably not the greatest idea to work too closely with too many other people. And then it progressed from there into a not a spoiler to say, interesting meditation on the pandemic and depression and creation and the internet and stuff that gets I guess it's not a surprise if you're into Bo Burnham. It fucking goes places. And yeah, I mean, spoiler free, unabashedly, I would recommend everyone watch it. And again, I like it a lot. I think my guess is I probably like it a little less than you do, but like unabashed recommendation. You should at least watch it. Not least which because it's pretty different than any other stuff that I've seen in a while.
Like, I like this to the point where I think that this is going to be a touchstone in my life kind of thing. Like,
whoa, hell yeah, that rules.
Yeah. Like, it's a bit early, obviously, to see how I feel about it. But yeah, so I guess this is still spoiler-free part of this, right? So I don't really know how to talk about without being spoiler-free.
Yeah, that's fine. Spoilers.
Yeah,
Watch
fuck it.
Inside. It's also like 90
Whatever.
minutes. Whatever. Just go
Yeah,
watch it.
well, go watch it. Like, this is gonna be spoilerific. So there's a whole lot of this show that is, first off, just fucking fantastically well done and well made, well produced, well written, well performed. Like, as an artist, I think this is one of the reasons why it's going to be a touchstone in my life, is because of the amount of work and effort that he put into the show, and what came out of it is a really inspiring thing for me. Either inspiring or full of jealousy, or saddening because I'm not pushing hard enough. One of the three, right? Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I'd throw in intimidating to that one as well.
Yes, intimidating. Absolutely. It is. It is. I start to think about, like, okay, if I saw Bo Burnham on the street, what would I say to him? I'd be like, "You inspire." I think I would say, "You inspire and intimidate me. Thank you." And, like, that's it, and then I'd walk away or something, right?
There you go. There you go.
Because I don't want to pester people, but
true, it's the worst. Yeah, I mean, to continue on with your thought, but to put a point on it, like, that is my biggest thing about this, is that I think it is an astounding technical achievement, both in terms of like the technical, in scare quotes, aspects of filmmaking, of like lighting and camera placement and editing and music production and stuff like that, but also technical in the sense of like the way that the script is constructed, the way that the songs flow into each other, the way that I mean, it's a very technical performance, I would also say. Which is not a surprise for Bo Burnham. I think that's very much his approach to comedy, especially, but really, really on display in this in a really, really great way.
This is fantastic concept that he talks about. So I watch a lot of TikTok, and after I watched Bo Burnham's Inside, half my TikTok was either Bo Burnham's like past comedy specials, current comedy special, people copying him, or him in interviews. And he talks a lot about the content of Inside throughout his interviews. And one of them that I really loved was the concept of everything is a performance, and like everything is both genuine and fake at the same time. And like people are having very real emotions that are simultaneously performative, which I felt so strongly in the special. Like, he's talking about his depression, he's talking about how he's working on this thing and he's never going to perfect it, and he just wants to work on it forever, and he's sad that he's been working on this for 6 months now, so he's more depressed, which felt very real, while also at the same time felt very performative for the audience. And I, as an actor, specifically as an actor, I had also recently watched a TikTok by Shia LaBeouf, an interview between him and Kristen Stewart, talking about acting. And he's like, the most intimate moments I've ever had and will ever have been on stage and have been performing. And he said, like, that sounds like a sad thing to say, but it's not. And like, I totally get that. And with Inside, these were very intimate moments that he was having with the camera that were also for the sake of a performance. And that was beautiful.
Yeah. First, the idea of Bo having everything as a performance and everything is both simultaneously fake and real, like, that's the skeleton key of, like, that's his entire thesis for everything he has done for the last decade and a half. That makes so much sense in the world that he would say that, and that he would be self-aware enough to know that that's the intentional project of his oeuvre, for lack of a better word.
Keep talking. I don't want to interrupt. Keep going.
But and I think that's really cool. And I think, like, one, it is cool that to have an artist, especially an artist who plays in the world of comedy, that has such a specific point of view, and a specific point of view that he plays to, like, the approach. I feel like that is present because I rewatched some of the other specials this week. That's present in everything that he does, but in different ways, and in ways that, like, the way he tackles the idea of everything as a performance is definitely different in Inside than it is in What, which is different from Make Happy, et cetera, et cetera.
He's evolved with it, and like it's gotten to the point now where it feels almost seamless between the two. Versus in the past, there have been times when he makes a joke where he accidentally pushes a water bottle off of a table or a chair or something, and is like, "Oh, sorry about that," and then the music starts to play, being like, "He meant to hit the water bottle off the chair. Yeah. He meant to hit the bottle off. Nothing is real. Art is a lie." And that's a very different take versus like what this is, which it does still feel. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. Like
It
that's
feels
how
it, it
much.
yeah, it feels like it's definitely a lot less confrontational
Yes.
than the earlier stuff. How much of that is that there isn't
Yes.
an audience to be explicitly confrontational to, versus knowing that the audience is someone who's going to watch this on camera later,
That's
maybe.
perfect because there's specifically one song he has where it's "Are You Gonna Hold Me Accountable?"
Mm-hmm.
and it's a '80s workout music video that he portrays himself as Jesus in this, and as he's like trying to work on himself and be better and trying to expose himself to the audience to be like, oh, I can do better, I need to do better, and it's in the form of a music video of him like working out and glistening sweat, and like it's very much a take on him truly grasping with the reality a little bit of like the shitty things he's done, while also simultaneously acknowledging that him doing it in this way is still performative and kind of shitty to do it like as a glorification of himself, like look at how good
Mm.
I'm trying to be off of my past.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, interesting. I would also add that I think it's definitely less confrontational in both in that there isn't an audience to explicitly say fuck you to and to ride off their reactions, including reactions that like he has clearly planned.
Yeah.
Again, watching what of the
Yes.
they where it's like the in repeat stuff and he does the Nazi salute in it because he knows that they're gonna
Keep
what
cheering.
reaction
Yeah.
they're going to have during the stuff. Anyway, so less confrontational. I also get the sense, though, to that original quote that you were talking about of everything is real, everything is fake. The early work, I think, understandably, both him being younger and him like playing in the version of comedy that he was playing with a decade ago,
Yeah.
is very, very tilted towards the what I need to do to bring some corrective to the way we're thinking about art and comedy right now is to really hammer home the everything is fake, everything is fake, everything you
Yeah.
think is real is actually a performance. Whereas Inside, I
Yeah.
think, does a lot more of still reminding you of that, but also seems to be more willing to embrace the idea that just because it's fake doesn't mean it's not valuable or not
Yes,
real.
exactly. He has somehow in this respect gotten less jaded.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, totally,
as
totally.
he grows older, he's gotten less jaded about this, which is usually the opposite. Because I feel like he started off his career very, very disillusioned, and like now he's at a point where he's like starting to understand that, like, yeah, like all the opinions he had before, for the most part, aren't necessarily bad or wrong, but that doesn't. The conclusions he came from them aren't necessarily where like everything is fake doesn't mean everything is bad, right? And like
Exactly, exactly.
that felt like the conclusion he came to before, and he is bouncing off of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as an example, the open question, and I don't even necessarily know to how valuable a discussion it is, but like open question to what degree some of the moments of like him crying and throwing down a light fixture or things like that of like,
Yeah.
how much is that staged? How much is that he happened to capture a real moment? Was the him turning
Well,
30 song
yeah.
actually filmed when he was turning 30, or was it a thing that he wrote out and then got a clock so that it like
Yes.
all that kind of stuff? I
And does it
the
matter?
exactly it doesn't matter, and also I cannot imagine a version of 2013 era Bo Burnham including a moment like the camera thing, like knocking the camera over, without then having a comment on it later.
Yeah.
He would like playing off the idea that, oh, I'm including this whether it's real or whether it's fictional moment. He would call out the fact that there's a manipulation there or whatever. And
Yeah.
he doesn't do that in this. At the same time, I wonder how much, maybe it's just my brain being broken, like he has trained a generation of people that love him to, I'm sure that there's a lot of people who grew up watching Bo Burnham stuff who sees those moments and does react with some initial skepticism or at least some
Sure.
questioning of it, which I think is
Yeah.
fair given the context of the rest of his stuff. So
I
it's
mean
definitely
that
a much more interesting and complicated interaction with artifice
yeah.
as a
That
concept.
specific interaction you're talking about the camera falling down. Well, I've seen a TikTok of that directly juxtaposed over the water bottle scene.
Mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
um,
yeah. I had water in my mouth when I said that, so I don't know if that's going to sound good or not, but whatever.
sure. Uh,
Yeah, totally.
yeah, and the first time I watched this, I was like half and half. Is he okay? Like, is Bo Burnham depressed and sad, and is he gonna kill himself? And like watching a couple more times, I'm like, no, like this is art, and this is not a good necessarily deep delve into his mind and what it's like to be Bo Burnham.
It does feel like something, though, that, to your point, it is definitely constructed artwork meant to make a point, both because I think it does that, and also Bo has absolutely earned the benefit of the doubt for us to assume that everything is intentional, even if it's
Yeah.
intentionally including something that was organically happening. That even though it is a constructed piece of art, it does feel incredibly inspired by actual experiences of depression, of like
Yes.
I feel like there is no world in which I could say, yeah, Boba Burnham probably is and has suffered from depression, and he is doing a good job of taking those experiences and both
Yeah.
talking about them and also like creating the filmed experience of them in the way that he makes the movie.
Yes, I think specifically what I'm bouncing off my initial reaction of is there's a less judgment I can levy against him and his suicidal possible tendencies or not from watching this special than
Oh yeah.
My first watch through it was very much like I don't know if he's okay.
Yeah.
Um, but also like it's art, like this is what artists do,
And he is definitely deliberately playing with that
yeah,
as a thread throughout it, both in terms of literally saying "I'll kill myself when I turn 40," but also in terms of like again, I think
oh, he ends the song, yeah,
he's earned the benefit of the doubt of assuming that if we're getting the experience on the first watch of being potentially worried for his actual mental health and safety, that
he
I
did a
feel
good
like
job.
it's more likely that he is doing that because that was a thing that he wanted at least some of the audience to experience, then it's a thing that was a miscalculation or an
Yeah,
unintentional seeping through of
that was
suicidal ideation.
my first watch through of this was so much more visceral and like I felt the things and I felt the real like there's art that does that sometimes where it's like less you're observing how amazing it is as a piece of art and you're more just like feeling everything from it, you know?
Yeah.
And that
Would you say that you liked that experience more or less than subsequent rewatches that might have been more analytical?
oh, that's a hard question. I would say yeah, I'd say I like that experience more. I think that is a more genuine, real. I think that's what good art does when it gets to that level that it gets beyond your brain. That's when it qualifies for me as like subliminal art. I mean, that's isn't that the definition of like sublime, right? You know.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I'll admit the reason why I asked it is I definitely liked it better the second time, more so than I did the first. I do think a lot of that was one, watching some more stuff in context, two, it just being a thing that rewards repeat viewings.
yeah,
But
that's true.
also, I did bounce off of it more, or it felt less coherent the first time I was watching through. And I don't know. I think it clicked a lot more on the second viewing, on realizing that the first half is essentially, and this is not a unique observation, I read it somewhere, but that the first half is okay, I'm going to make a normal Bo Burnham special, but inside and by myself. And then he turns 30, and then it becomes something else. And it was
Yeah,
the interaction between those two, especially candidly, my bouncing off of the first half mostly, that I think gelled a whole lot more on rewatch than the first time when I was sort of like, all right, yes, white woman Instagram is fun, but also why is it in this movie? Made more sense than the second time through.
interesting. Okay, I can see that. I can see that a lot. Yeah, I mean the there are definitely a couple of things for me that were like this is a pleasant music video to watch or something, or like this is a very talented thing. I would say yeah, the reason why I liked it a lot more the first time, or not I liked it a lot more. That's I would say that's the wrong word. Why I
Interesting.
felt it a lot more is because of first off the second half of like you were saying, and then also me as an actor and as a like artists creating things of just the awe that was inspired by so much of watching it and like him doing it alone in this point in my life right now hit me very hard of like I am trying to be an actor on Broadway or on film and pre-pandemic I had like I was like kind of skating by and like I actually just listened to one of our podcasts recently and I was saying how I was like pushing like 70 to 80% before the pandemic. And like now I'm pushing a lot harder. I'm doing stuff. I'm directing a show right now that just opened yesterday or Friday, 2 days ago, whatever. And I can feel what he's done with this piece and like how much of his blood, sweat, and tears he put into it, and the sadness he feels throughout it of creating it, of like the amount of work you put into something and how sad you are when you're working on it, and you're just like, but you have to keep going because you can't not go. That combined with just how good the quality of the production was really hit me in that direction. And also the concept of being so fucking alone the entire time, and like during the pandemic. And I just listened to our pandemic episode like this week, our most recent one, where I had talked about me being in my apartment and all the emotions that I was going through. And that really hit in confluence with talking about and watching Inside again. Like,
Hell
yeah.
yeah. Hell yeah. I'm also realizing the other thing on my first watch, in like randomly like 2 weeks or so, I think it was because like there was a bunch of Bo Burnham stuff that was blowing up on TikTok and a lot of people were talking about it or something like that. I
Yeah.
had the thought, I feel like just a couple of weeks before Inside, maybe I'm also like conflating two different times because it makes the narrative better. But I feel like I had the thought of, I wonder if I've outgrown Bo Burnham, if this is someone who I loved when I was younger and just
Yeah.
is not clicking as much for me. And that was definitely some of the context that I feel like I was taking into Inside. And your point
Oh,
around thinking of it as art and as a thing that is being created and stuff like that, weirdly, I think ended up pushing me more on the first watch into the mode of, I really like this, but I think I might respect it more than I like it.
fair enough. Yeah.
And because I think I was thinking of it more as, this is a very towering creative and technical achievement by a person that maybe I just don't click with as much as I did 10 years ago.
Ah,
On rewatching and on watching other of his contact stuff, I think I'm weirdly sort of in a, in a more place on both sides of, I do kind of feel more so now that like, yeah, watching that older stuff, I do think I've kind of outgrown a lot of it, especially some of the earlier stuff.
oh yeah,
At the
absolutely. Me
same
too.
time, I do feel I have less baggage around Inside, even if still end of the day it's a like 4 out of 5 for me, not a 5 out of 5 masterpiece.
Sure.
It's still which actually, just to be clear, probably we're going to end up talking a lot about here's the stuff that I didn't like, here's the stuff that Alex really likes, just
Yeah.
because that's a distinguishing factor that makes the conversation more interesting. Blanket all of that with, I think it's really fucking good and it's very impressive. And we're talking about within that realm. But yeah, yeah, it's interesting. But I think I pulled on similar things that you did. It just, in combination with the context I was in, might have led me towards more of a, okay, yes, I feel comfortable with my narrative of Inside being one of, I deeply respect it, even if I don't love it.
Sure. I get that. Yeah. I definitely think as an artist currently trying to do art, and like it's as we said before, intimidating and inspiring at the same time. And
Yeah. Yeah. And it is something that, like, again, to the point of it being a towering achievement, the dude fucking did it and made a thing,
yeah.
and with a relatively singular and I think fairly clear focus that is impressive.
Yeah.
Side conversation. In rewatching so I would say Inside is my favorite of any of the specials that Bo's done. I'm guessing that would probably be the same for you. Other
Absolutely.
than
Yeah.
Inside, though, where do you place the various different ones? Because I was a little bit surprised at where some of them landed for me.
Um, honestly, they blend together a lot. Is an issue I have, and so there's what? So there's what, and then there's make happy.
Yeah, What Make
That's it,
Happy,
right?
and then there's Words is the oldest one, which
Oh
I had
shit.
trouble finding. I had to download it illegally to actually get it.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. I did not watch that one. Ah,
Spoiler, it's very junior, and that was the one that I had the most like, oh, both I and Bo Burnham have, I think, outgrown this. It's also the one that is the most just like, oh, it's just a filmed comedy special because
gotcha.
he's 19 and whatever, and is not, I think, as involved in it as a piece of filmmaking the way the other two are.
Yeah. Ah, dang it, you did come out more prepared than I did. Ah,
Hell yeah, dog, let's go.
beat me.
I only watched
Um,
I only watched Inside twice though, so I think we're
fair
maybe
enough.
we maybe
Fair
we
enough.
tie on that.
Yeah. Interesting. So there's what and there's make happy. I'm trying to like remember them, and it's they're all they kind of blend together
Yeah,
too much for me. Make Happy, there was a bit of like you could see a bit of inside in it of like the high-minded conceptuality and trying to like reach for these grandiose things that I don't know if it quite got there versus in what it felt like simpler and like there was like a great ending bit to it, that was still great, this grandiose thing, but it worked better than it did in Make Happy.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's kind of my similar take on it. That
he thought too
yeah,
much of himself in Make Happy.
I think so, and I do think it's like I'm looking at. I didn't take notes for Inside, weirdly, but I did take notes for the other ones. But looking at my notes, at least for like what versus Make Happy, yeah, Make Happy is the one where it's like, oh, there's actual filmmaking happening here, and like you are trying to make this into a movie even more so than what. And I do think his persona loosened up a lot, whereas like what is really that old school Bo Burnham fuck you persona all the way through, and anytime that he's deviating it from it, it's because he's going to make a point that he's going to make fun of you for 10 seconds
Yeah,
later because you believed in him loosening. Whereas
yeah,
Make Happy, I think it did feel more like, all right, we're getting towards, even if it's still a persona, the persona feels looser and more natural. But man, what I think what kind of is like, this is, to me, that was the one that I liked more, of the other specials, in that it kind of felt like this is the platonic ideal of this pre-Inside kind of Bo Burnham. That's just like,
yeah,
yeah, it's just kind of firing all cylinders. And also, I do think probably my favorite comedy bit of his is the intro of What, which is the whole like "Welcome to the Show" song. That's like
yeah.
7 minutes long and made of like 17 different bits. Specifically, the stupid fucking lizard bit that he does, where he does a like Broadway song pretending to be Godzilla. It's great. I
Yes.
love it.
It's hard to be a lizard.
I love silly committing to the bit
Yeah.
Bo so much, and that, which actually there is a lot of that in Inside, especially a lot in the first half.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. What do you think about some of the specific songs?
Ooh, what did I think about some of the specific songs? Oh, one, I think my favorite bit of the show, the intern song with the like reaction video inceptioning of Bo watching his own reactions and going on. It's like as soon as it made that first turn, I was like, oh, I see where this is going to go. And it
Yeah.
did go there, but it was just like perfect. It perfect
Yes, it
execution
worked.
of that kind of thing. And I also just love how much he looks like a Muppet when he does the little like wada wada wah wah thing at the end. It's great. I just could not get out of my head. It's like, oh, he looks like an actual Muppet doing that movement. It's great.
It was a very like I feel like it was a very millennial bit. Like that is the most being self-critical, and there is it was felt very Bo too of just very like, oh, I think I can levy this criticism against myself. That makes me less of a douchebag, but it doesn't. Self-awareness does
Yeah.
not absolve you from being an asshole.
Ooh, it actually also ties into an interesting theme or theme that gets explored through, is how much he is explicitly commenting on versions of internet interactions and doing them through his filmmaking. Actually, because there's the sexting song, there's the FaceTime song, there's the white woman's Instagram song, there's the
Yeah.
reaction video song, there's the video game live streaming. Yeah, there's like seven. Oh wow, I'm only now realizing there's so many songs that are specifically about how do you talk to people on the internet, or how do you communicate on the
Yeah.
internet.
They're all this is a very modern like it's a critique of society, and it's he's got a lot of like great points in here that are put into funny songs.
Yeah, and I guess it totally makes sense in the context of he never talks about the pandemic or explicitly about the pandemic, but it's a, hey, you're stuck in your house, and that's a key aspect of the modern pandemic, is that your communication is mediated through digital for-profit enterprises.
Yeah. And the song Look Who's Inside Again, which is so like it's like you found a reason to hide again, you found a reason to run from the world, which is so self-centered, while also like the pandemic is what is forcing him to be inside again, but he's also talking about when he was a child and like a fucking dork and no one liked him, and all he did was sit in his room and make these songs, these silly songs, and it's a very sad like childhood moment, you
It's
know?
weird now that you say that out loud. I didn't connect to that song really at all, other than good song. I liked it. Fine, whatever. Weird that I didn't connect to that song at all, given like we talked about this as a key theme in the last like two pandemic episodes. Is mine like is
Yeah.
the pandemic
What?
just an excuse for me to spend my time inside because that's the thing that I'm comfortable with? And I'm only just now realizing he has a song where he talks about that explicitly, and it just totally brushed past me.
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe I
You
need to
need to watch
rewatch it
this
again and do
again.
a little bit more soul searching of
Yeah,
not
man.
watching it as an exercise to critique and watching it as like, okay, how is Bo Burnham implicating me specifically?
Exactly. The amount of this is about you feel on yourself. Like that's what you got to look at it as. Whew. God, Welcome to the Internet too was so just such a good, well done song. It's so perfectly descriptive of the internet, of the tone, of the circus themes, of the like the laughter of like a ha 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 ha. We've
Yeah.
got you now, sonny boy.
Welcome to the Internet is interestingly the one that like compositionally feels the most like it could have totally fit on any other Bo Burnham album
Yeah,
or Bo Burnham show, but benefits so much in relatively simple, literally just in terms of edit, but like benefits so much from being filmed that you would not get that same experience. Especially, you wouldn't get the same dark, oppressive, like horror movie, slowly growing horror movie experience if you were watching it live or if you're
yeah.
watching a filmed version of a live performance that you do in the way that
That
it's filmed for
was
Inside.
yeah. That was like right. So we're looking at the song list right now because I'm horrible with names. And I'm looking at the order of the special now. That one is right after All Time Low, and like that is the descent from like the beginning of this of the second half is like I'm depressed, and then it goes into like I'm mentally unstable now because of how depressed I am. And like he starts this is where it starts to go a bit off the rails and it starts to have like there was a moment of oh, what's that movie with Martin Sheen and Martin Sheen is like the main good guy going out into the woods of Vietnam. Heart of Darkness.
Oh, Apocalypse Now?
Apocalypse Now. There's a scene where Marlon Brando is like coming out of darkness. You see him for the first time, and there was this one moment in Inside in the second half, and like the last quarter basically, that was just reminded me weirdly vividly of it, and it was like this is unnerving. Oh, All Eyes on Me. I think I stood up when
Yeah.
like I was like, okay, I'll stand up. I felt a little silly, and then I sat back down, but I was like, I was fucking into it when he was telling me like, get the fuck up, like get the fuck up, no you, and then he like picks you up, and I'm like, I first off want to see this in VR now and see what that's like, but
Ugh.
which I
That's
do want to lead into that right into. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, that's one so fucking stupid, but also that rules. I love that
Yeah,
for you, genuinely.
absolutely, absolutely. It was
Um,
that's how much I felt it the first time I saw it. Like,
yeah. On the subject of All Eyes on Me, though, um, I do a thing where every year, as I get obsessed with different songs I listen to, I add them to a playlist. All Eyes on Me is a just straight up good pop song. Like Bo
yeah,
Burnham just made a great pop song to the degree of like, I would love to see a genuinely earnest or as earnest as he could possibly make it pop album for Bo Burnham. And also his production is so like he made genuinely good synth pop for the entirety of the show in a bunch of
fucking
different
amazing.
styles.
Like,
And like that was actually the one thing that did really stand out to me the first watch through was, oh, Bo Burnham is just a good music producer now,
yeah,
like full stop.
absolutely. That was I watched FaceTime with my mom, or I watched the whole thing with Nat and his fiance for a bit. And FaceTime with my mom tonight. He was like, "This could just be a Drake song, like
Yeah, absolutely,
just
absolutely.
straight up." I want to see. I wonder how much stuff he's like produced that I don't know about. If
Yeah,
anything.
I was talking with a friend when I was rewatching it, and we were getting off into a conversation around like one, we would love to have him produce other artists. Like, can he be the new Jack Antonoff and go and just produce for a whole bunch of people? And then also getting off into a conversation of, which different pop stars would be the most fun to cover different Inside songs? and then went
Yeah.
off on a whole tear about like, oh man, if Phoebe Bridgers covered All Eyes on Me, holy shit, that'd be the end. That'd be the end game right there.
I want so many of these songs to be covered by other people now because it's so good, and like they're just
Yeah. And actually, I will say I only watched Inside twice, but over the last couple of days, I started listening to the album mostly as a okay, this is a good way to remind myself of different songs and not have to go through the whole thing of what we have to. That sounds bad, but not have to. I can do it atomized and just listen to individual songs when I want to think about them. And then I found like I'm actually just listening to the album while I go around and do other stuff. Like it, especially if you aren't paying too much attention to the lyrics, it totally just blends into the background of like, okay, it's a good synth pop song that every once in a while you pay attention and you're like, did he just say that you should fuck their wives and drink their blood? Okay,
yeah,
fine.
yeah. God, it's this feels like it's going to influence art. Is
Oh,
like how big I think this is. Like
100%. Both hope. Well, it'll influence art in terms of hopefully in really good ways. Also, there's going to be a lot of people making shitty inside knockoffs now,
yeah, absolutely.
which is going to fucking suck. But oh well, oh well.
Just the lighting alone, I'm so excited for that to exist out in the world. Like I love the lighting of the show. It was so good and so like simple but like distinct, you know? Which is because all that he could do probably is like if
Yeah.
he's the only one who has to control all these things, then
On the subject of the lighting, how was the experience of seeing this in a theater on the big screen in like full sensory overload?
yeah, it was. I have two minds about it. First off, I wasn't alone. I mean, I did go by myself, but there were other people in the theater. There was
Yeah.
one person in the audience who was like laughing too much a bit, and that was a little bit frustrating. And there were also times when like I had when I had watched it on my screen of like I had like felt a lot of emotion or cried where people were like laughing, and it was like this is not like okay, he's talking about how he's so fucking depressed and sad right now. This isn't a funny joke he's making. Like,
Ooh, that
why
is
are you laughing at
so
this? Like,
wild that like yeah, that by watching it in a communal experience that is
yeah,
or that a key part of Inside is the if you watched it alone, which
yeah,
probably a lot of people did, knowing Bo
yeah,
Burnham's audience, that the key part of the reaction is that it's you as one person watching a thing made by and featuring one person, and then that
yeah,
reaction between the two of you is as much a part of the piece as anything else. Therefore, if you're
absolutely.
now in an experience where you're seeing everybody else's reactions and how they certainly won't be yours because people are people, I hadn't thought about how that would change things a
There's
lot.
that part. Other part of like it was fantastic to see it on a big screen and like All Eyes on Me, for example, was fucking amazing. Like, I couldn't hear
Yeah.
other people during that song, which was exactly what I needed, and it was. Whew, that was I want to go and rent out a theater for myself and watch it. Like
Oh
maybe
yeah.
one or two other people at most. It was. I'm glad I experienced it in the theater. I think it's better alone on your fucking laptop computer, like,
Yeah.
um, because it's so. For, it's weird because it's the production value of it and the quality of it makes me want to see it on the big screen, but I also want to see it alone.
Yeah. That totally makes sense to me.
Yeah,
Or
it's
totally makes
frustrating.
sense. Both the alone part of things, I think that super stands out.
Yeah,
But also the in counterpoint to the thing that people always talk about when they're talking like death of cinema and blah 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 of like Martin Scorsese makes his movies to be seen on a big screen and makes them to be projected in this certain way and stuff like that, which I it sounds snarky when I say that, but like I think is true. Versus, or he seems like the kind of person who would tailor the experience to be something that works on the kinds of devices you watch Netflix on,
yeah.
in a way that wouldn't be the case for traditional theater focused movies.
There's also a lot of playing with the size of the screen and like
Oh
some
yeah,
songs. Like for
that's
example,
true. I
White
didn't
Woman's
think about that.
Instagram. There was the scene when he gets like very real and he starts to be like posting a picture of your mom saying, "I can't believe it's been 10 years and I've got a boyfriend who I really love now. I have a dog. Please say hi to dad for me." That was like a very like up until then you could see him as mocking white women's Instagrams. Just mocking. And then that was the moment when I was like, "Oh, this is kind of he's more just giving a true look at what a white woman's Instagram is and like what this stereotype is." and like it is a real thing. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, so pin in that because I want to talk more about that. But so say more about how was that experience, if at all, different in a theater than or on a big screen than in general,
Um,
if at all. It just sounded like you were
it
leaning towards
it
that, but
it
maybe not.
wasn't too much. I would say it was different because the literal light in the theater changed. So like
Ah, okay.
when this like for that scene, by the way, what happens is it goes from a square, like an Instagram square, to a full screen, to a full what 4:3 aspect ratio or something, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Whatever the normal aspect ratio is, instead of 1 to 1, like a Instagram square post. So that was very intentionally like, this is reality, and like it was reality before, but like this is, like her bearing her soul here in a real way. And then it went back to like the first line after it was goat cheese salad, which is just a funny phrase.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, like signposts it more because you're seeing it on that larger screen
Yeah,
or seeing those format
exactly.
changes on this larger screen.
Yeah, I noticed those a bit more. Is what is yeah, good
That
to
makes
good.
sense. Yeah, I wanted to actually jump on that a little bit. We kind of talked about it a little bit before in terms of the Beau's approach to artifice and being, at the very least, more conflicted and more willing to have his artwork acknowledge that there's positives to artifice. I think in general, this, especially in comparison to his earlier stuff, almost everything, now that I think about it, does have some level of it's this thing, but it's also this other thing, or this is bad, but also there's good in it, or this is good, but also there's bad in it, or I'm thinking, White Woman's Instagram is that point that you talked about,
Yeah,
how the world works also of like, okay, this is, Sokka the sock puppet is kind of an asshole, and there's definitely some
yeah,
parts of it that's like, okay, are we supposed to be against him? But also then that turns Bo into the monster that is trying to like torture the sock puppet, because the sock puppet's being mean, and it is. That's, I think, more an example of maybe a everyone is bad kind of thing,
yeah,
which is a little bit more in line with the old school Bo. But I do think in general that there's nothing that's there. It feels like this in comparison. There aren't any, every point has a counterpoint, in a lot of cases, and there is less of a polemical, this is my stance and my opinion on what is bad about things, which usually was the way that Bo did things before, without having some additional complication at least thrown in, even if maybe net some stuff still is more scathing than others.
yeah. That's fair. Nothing feels ham-fisted.
Yeah.
Here's my point. Well, I mean, it never feels like that, but all of his points feel laden with the entertainment value as well, and trying to be
Yeah.
comedic, and it's still a comedy, kind of a comedy special. It's still a funny thing with that.
Ooh.
Yeah. How
It,
would you
yeah.
consider? Because this, I feel like this has more drama than comedy in it.
Huh. Yeah, because I mean, it is very much, especially in the first half, using the language of comedy special. This is actually a thing that a friend and I were talking about. Of like, is it a one man show more than it's a comedy special, more than it's a movie, more than blah blah blah?
Oof.
I do think the thing that pushed me off of actually the thing that pushed me off of it at the beginning was not being able to answer that question satisfactorily of like, is this a comedy special, or in particular is like, is this a not great comedy special or a really good something else that is maybe marred by the fact it's trying to be a comedy special? On rewatch, that gelled a lot more for me. Of still, I don't know the answer of whether you would consider it a comedy special or not, but I definitely, the fact that I couldn't place it bothered me the first run through and stopped bothering me second time. Both in that I think I just became more chill about like, okay, fine, this is a thing that can't be
Did
categorized.
you?
That's fine. But also, I think I talked about it before. The point of seeing the structure more, and particularly seeing the structure of the
Yeah.
30th birthday being the turning point, made it like, in my addled structure obsessed brain, as soon as I had that to hold on to, I was like, oh, it all makes sense and it all works. Got it. Fine.
Interesting. I didn't notice the 30 thing until you mentioned it this time. I mean, I guess yes. I don't think it's that, because I Look Who's Inside Again is before 30. Um, and like unpaid intern when he's criticizing himself and feeling comfortable and like
Yeah. Oh,
about
yes.
his
No,
issues.
I don't
And
think. Yes, I would agree with that. I think though that like
it definitely gets darker throughout. I'm unwilling to set like a turning point, I guess, personally.
interesting. That's fair. That's fair. I definitely feel it, and in particular, I feel like some of those ones earlier, they feel, or the difference to me is it feels like these are stuff that wouldn't have happened on. Well, I was about to say this is
Yeah.
where we start getting everything in the first half is a thing that up until 30, everything in the first half is something that I could totally see in any other Bo special working. Um, However, I could also see that being true for some stuff in
Really,
Act
I
Two.
mean, I couldn't see Look Who's Inside Again working.
I think I could, but maybe I'm also just forgetting it a little bit of what all
Fair.
of how it
I
all
don't know.
goes.
I'm getting nitpicky now.
No, it's totally fair. It's totally. But I was also going to say that like I literally said it before. Welcome to the Internet could be in any other one.
Yeah, exactly.
The Bezos ones, even the second Bezos, fine.
All Eyes on Me as well. Like,
Yeah, All Eyes on Me is the interesting one in that the reason why I think it couldn't, it totally
well, it
aesthetically
just yeah
fits really cleanly, especially with the like, I don't think I can
with
handle
Make
this right
Happy.
now. But at the same time, it's like there aren't enough jokes, which is what makes it a great song. But that also makes it like that. That is the part that would stand out to me if I was
Sure.
if it were in the similar
Well, the
position
thing
on another one.
is, it's the final bit of the show. It's the climax.
Yeah, yeah,
And so it fits where the climax would fit another one. So like very much the end
exactly.
of Make Happy with the Kanye thing, and
Yeah. And I think that actually shows the difference between Inside versus Make Happy, that like
yeah,
there aren't really
yeah,
jokes in All Eyes on Me. The only joke in All Eyes on Me is and then a funny thing happened, and then he does canned laughter,
yeah.
which wouldn't work in other
I mean,
special,
the
or it wouldn't
concept
be
of it's the
done in
joke,
other
though,
special.
right? The concept of it being like this pop, like praise him and pray for me, and like I'm the center of attention, and I'm the rock star who is talking to you guys.
I guess, yes.
Also, I'm trying to figure out what are the lines of the song that's like global warming, get in, get inside or something.
Uh, the ocean's rising. Let me
You
look it up.
say the
Ocean's
ocean's
rising.
rising
Like
like
I
I
give a
hear
shit.
this.
You say the whole world's ending.
Yeah,
Baby, you already did. You're not gonna
yeah,
slow it. Heaven, how's you try? Got it good. No, get inside. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Yes, and
not a
there's no
joke.
jokes. You're right. You're right. There's no jokes in there.
But I will say, again, I was trying to talk myself into my original take of. I still think that there is a big style to me there feels like a big stylistic difference between pre 30, post 30, and also to me, even if that's not true, that's the thing that made me click
Sure,
and like the special more.
absolutely.
So I'm going to believe it no matter what. But however, I don't think. Like I said, I don't think it's certainly not as clean as what I originally thought without thinking, which was like, okay, this is the old Bo, this is the new Bo. No, it's a lot messier than that.
Yeah, I can get on board with that for sure. It's fucking amazing. The whole thing's amazing. I've said 50 times.
One interesting thing that totally is by happenstance, but I'm so happy that it did happen this way. Is I randomly saw on Letterboxd, which is the only good social network, that someone that I follow posted about watching this movie that I'd never heard of called "Pretend That You Love Me" by a guy named Joel Haver, who is a YouTuber and makes a whole bunch of short films, but he also makes DIY feature films as well. He's made like 6 of them or whatever. And
Sure.
Pretend That You Love Me, and then he releases them on YouTube for free. Pretend That You Love Me is one that he started making in 2019, finished in like the beginning of the pandemic, and then released, I think, like June of last year. But it's a full-length feature film that he made by himself that I think it's mostly improvised, but it also sort of blends like documentary stuff, but also improvised scenes with other actors and stuff like that. And I totally didn't clock this when I watched it like whatever Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. And then my friend Samai noticed that I watched it and on Letterboxd, and then also watched it like later that same night because it's free, it's on YouTube, why not? And then she was, because we've been talking about Inside before, and responded to me and was like, "This is a really good companion piece to Inside in a way that I totally hadn't thought about." In particular, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but like they're both DIY self-made movies. They're both movies that at least were made partially during a pandemic. They're both really, really focused on loneliness and connection and how health and mental health influences that. But the interesting difference between the two, and something that I think helped make Inside crystallize a little bit more for me in that I could compare between the two, is that one is Pretend That You Love Me is a self-made DIY movie about connection and loneliness, but really focuses on like love and interpersonal relationships and has other actors and is filmed outside and things like that, and doesn't really ever talk about the internet and technology as a mediating force. Like that's just not a thing that movie's interested in, which made it stand out more in Inside of like, oh, this is a thing that Bo's really focused on.
Yeah.
And also the comparison points between the two of Pretend That You Love Me is a run and gun, shaggy, mostly improvised, really, really well-made movie. I strongly recommend it to anyone to watch it, not least which because it's free. It's 90 minutes and you will not see anything else like it probably.
Sure.
But, you know, it's shaggy, it's improvised, it's filmed outside, stuff like that. Whereas Inside is like everything we've talked about. Every single part of it is constructed down to the minute. Even if stuff is included that's unintentional, it's like very intentionally included and edited within a second of its life. So little plug to say, I happened to watch what I think was a very good companion piece to Inside in Pretend That You Love Me by Joel Haver, which you can find on YouTube. And also to call out that how did I not notice that, given that they're so similar, until somebody texted me and was like, I think this makes a good companion piece to Inside. You should talk about it on the podcast. So here we are.
Right now, which I also just Googled Letterbox, and I need to start using that.
Hell yeah. It's the good shit. It's the good shit. I will also say there's one other part that is a total spoiler that I don't want to talk about in Pretend That You Love Me, but one other thing that is also really interesting, specifically around how they are both movies about making movies to some degree. But that is all I will say.
Okay. So you had said something, there were things that you hadn't liked in the show. What were they?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think definitely a lot of them are ones that we talked about before that sort of got better on second rewatch, particularly around like not being able to fully wrap my head around what it was and how it was working. That I think that got a little better. The more I think about it now, I think this is less of a thing that has discrete things that I don't like and more of a thing where I like it, but the sum total just didn't get me to the place where I think it got you. But in terms of some of the more discrete stuff, I still think there are parts of Act One that drag of it for me. I wouldn't hate White Woman's Instagram being shorter. I wouldn't hate like Problematic being a little shorter. I think it even though the structure clicks more for me now, it is still a little bit on even on rewatch of like, okay, I'm watching this to get through to the good part. Also, I will say stuff like White Woman's Instagram is the kind similar to the kinds of Bo Burnham songs that I don't love as much, which are the ones that I think this does a better job of getting there, but like on the surface are more him critiquing a thing that he is seeing outside of himself versus
I see that.
versus the stuff that is more self-critical, which is something that's definitely true on like what I don't really like repeat stuff. It just never really does much for me. I don't really like the country song. Doesn't really do much for me. Generally when he's doing a pure this thing that exists in the world is bad, that's the stuff that I tend to bounce off of a little bit more. White Woman's Instagram, I think, to all the stuff we were talking about before, takes it in a more interesting direction once you get all the way through it. But, you know, that's the kind of stuff that's just like, it's not my favorite Bo, especially in comparison to the Bo of later. I think one thing that is actually unfortunate that I watched Pretend That You Love Me is that I get that it's not a flaw in Inside because it's clearly the point and the intention of it. But like, there's something really magical in Pretend That You Love Me in particular about exploring loneliness through your interactions with other people, specifically other physical actors that you're sharing a screen with, and how you can like be lonely with other people. Which again, not a flaw of Inside. It's just a thing that I noticed in comparison of, oh, I vibe with this approach a little bit more, but that approach is clearly like not the point, capital NTP of Inside.
I totally agree. Like for those sort of songs, I like hearing them once, maybe twice, and like appreciating like see the thing with White Woman's Instagram specifically is I appreciate how much he captured the feeling of that, you know,
Oh,
which
100%.
sometimes was a bit too mocking, but for the most part was just a honest like look at that, you know. But overall, like outside of that, like the almost critiquing nature of that, which it was like this weird balance, right? Of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely not one of
Yeah.
my more favorite songs. I enjoy it, but like, yeah, I can see people bouncing off that. Problematic. I also feel similarly, I think, as you do. It was just so funny with the water bottle in the belly button. Just
That's true.
was
Yeah. And that was something that I actually didn't
so
notice
fucking funny.
I did not notice that the first time through and did the second.
Oh my god.
And yeah, the song I still think went on longer than I wanted to, but I appreciated that, like, oh, he's doing like incredibly silly, stupid shit
Yeah.
in
Like
the filming of this that I just totally glossed over the first time.
also like I even the thing these are songs that aren't my favorite that I still appreciate a lot, especially Problematic, because he is clearly a lot more in shape in that song than in
Oh,
other parts of the show.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like that's that is for me again the intimidating and aspiring thing as an artist. Why I really enjoy Problematic is because it is that's something that I've struggled with is the physicality of what it means to be an actor, and like I need to work out more because then I have more energy and also I'll look better for my acting shit, and like that's just unequivocally a thing that I should probably do, you know? It's also healthier for me. That's important too, you know? And to see him do that for this piece, and maybe he wasn't like that much more in shape. Maybe he just worked out for like in the moments right before to define his muscles, but even that is still like a cool concept, you know?
I feel like I need to rewatch it, but
Yes!
well, to say this point as well, I feel like I need to rewatch it because I just cannot still fully wrap my head around. I don't know if I love the ending, or I don't know if the ending gives me what I want. I, however, am not. I'm also not
uh,
sure if it is giving me what Bo wants. Is I feel like the ending is giving me what Bo wants the ending to be, and I don't know if that is the ending that I want to get,
sure.
and I don't know if, or my suspicion is therefore that is the point.
I love the ending moment of it,
Yeah.
of like not even him watching him banging trying to get back inside. But even that, like as I think about it, like so the ending, to describe it for people who have watched it already, but to remind you, is he finally goes outside in like white clothing, pretending to be an angel. Basically, is I think the metaphor that is trying to be aimed for, possibly. And then a spotlight goes on him, and people start laughing at him like in a laugh track, and he tries to go back inside, and he can't, and he's like begging, desperate to get back inside, and then it turns into if you're watching the same thing except it's over a projector, where Bo is watching himself do this as he's like reviewing this, which is what he's been doing throughout the entire show. And I love the concept of what we were talking about earlier of like this is the performative versus real, and like watching him edit his work, which in it of itself is performative, and that that perfect little smile he had at the end where it's done and he is like he has completed his special and he smiles and like it's I identify so much with that feeling of
Mm.
having done and finished a show. um
Okay. Nice.
yeah, that smile for me was just it's just like you're not depressed, great, you're finishing this thing made you smile, and like
Mm. Mm-hmm.
that's all I
Mm-hmm.
needed from you, Bo. I needed you to smile because of the work you've done.
All right. Yeah, I can dig it. I can dig it. I can dig it. Again, I think I need to rewatch it, or particularly
Sure.
rewatch the ending again to let it gel a little bit more. But yeah,
what
that makes sense.
what besides that through the ending did you not enjoy?
I don't know. I think it is just a like. It feels to me like it ends, and then I'm like, all right, okay, it's done. Which is I don't love that. I feel like something this towering should leave me with a little more than a okay, it's done. And I don't
Ah,
necessarily know why it even gives me that, because even
interesting.
hearing you describe the ending is more affecting to me than the actual ending, which is odd.
Interesting.
And I wonder how
I
much of that is that I just like need to rewatch it or rewatch it in a different frame.
That's fast because I think it has to do with the fact that you like bounced off of it a little bit the first time you saw it through, and like for me
Quite possibly, yeah.
of you know All Eyes on Me actually like making me feel stuff, and like everything making me feel stuff and not be analytical and thinking about it. And that moment at the end, it was just this like, for me, it felt like the cherry on top. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad you're happy, man. Like, especially since his last play was called Make Happy, and it started off with him in like clown face. Then he's gonna go on stage because he's a clown, because it's a metaphor for him being a performer, which is, it was a little bit heavy handed, frankly.
And
But
apparently,
also,
this room
like,
is the room that he goes into at the end of Make Happy.
yeah, well, this is his like childhood like guest bedroom
Yeah.
that he's had forever. That it's at the beginning of what actually?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's had this room for years, or like his family's had this room for years, and just having that, like, I think a lot of this show is very self-centered, and not necessarily a bad way, but like you appreciate it more if you've watched more of Bo's stuff.
Yes, I
Did you
agree with
watch
that.
Make Happy and what before or after you saw Inside the first time?
After well, I mean, I had seen them years ago, but no, I saw Inside, whatever, 2 months ago when it came out.
Gotcha.
Rewatched in order, words with words, what Make Happy, then rewatched Inside this week.
Interesting. I think being a fanboy for Bo really helped this play.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I could totally see that. And to that similar point of, if I was already in a vibe of, have I outgrown Bo Burnham, is probably the wrong
absolutely, yeah.
phrase, or
versus
it's the wrong phase to watch this, and or this could either be the thing then that like totally turns you around if you're in that mode, or it could be the thing that, I mean, if I was more in the no, I've outgrown Bo Burnham, then maybe I would like it even less than I did. I think, again, at the end of the day, towering achievement, and I did really like it, and I have watched it twice and would certainly have no qualms watching it again, and probably will at some point. At the same time, I think, in for all that you were talking about, like, this is a central text for you going forward, which I think is cool and makes sense. For me, I think it is in the sense of it's unique, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff that copies it. So I think it'll be a reference point, but I don't think it'll be a foundational text for me in the way other movies that I've watched recently.
For me, it's going to be like Alex Wade specific, like a lot of different ways how I'm feeling about my life.
But that makes sense, and that's fair. And also, I made you watch a bunch of Buffy because I felt that way about Buffy when I watched seven seasons of it. So,
I mean, I should have. I don't know if I'm going to go back to it. It's so much, man.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's a lot of. Oh God, this was 8 months ago or whatever when I was recently out of the throes of Buffydom, and I'd had it somewhere in my somewhat of like, what should I do after binge watching 7 seasons of Buffy in 2 months on my Bumble profile or whatever, and then did get someone responding. It's like, oh, I've been meaning to watch Buffy. What do you think? What should I do it? And then the novel that I responded back in terms of like, well, the first season's not great, but you can skip most of it, but then it really starts to get good in season 2, but then it gets bad after the blah, blah, blah. And then no response from that ever. So,
no.
Fair. Another way of saying, it is difficult to recommend Buffy the Vampire Slayer without reservations.
Fair enough. Any final thoughts on the special?
Any other final thoughts on the special? One other tiny little thing that I noticed on rewatch that I thought was cool is the closest thing to an antagonist, or the way that the camera itself is filmed in various moments, is very interesting and menacing, and did sort of make me think, especially through that lens of, oh, this is Bo being so much less confrontational towards the audience. That is some of that also, that he is, in his filmmaking choices, placing the camera as role of antagonist in a world where in his other specials he was placing the audience's roles in the role of antagonist. Maybe not. It also looked a lot like 2001 in some of the times when they were doing the like slow zoom in into the camera. And I thought that was neat.
The camera itself. Well, I think that was the tagline. Not the tagline. That was like in a lot of the promotional work, was just the camera.
Oh, interesting. I don't think I noticed that. Any other thoughts on your side of Inside?
There are a lot of really cool things if you paused and you could read the stuff. That was great.
Ooh, yes, that is true. I do get the sense and notice that, like, everything is chock full of a whole bunch of jokes. I'm sure 90% of them completely passed me by.
Which I
rewatch.
I used to bounce off of that, but I enjoy it because it's like you can watch it, you can not watch it. It's your choice. You can pause it if you want. You can keep going.
It's when if it detracts from your experience as a less casual person, then I bristle on that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or if if it detracts from your experience as a less casual person, then either you as the filmmaker need to be okay with that experience being bad, and that's the point, or then you miscalculated and you need to make it so that it doesn't detract.
Yeah. Yeah.
And knowing Bo Burnham, there is part of me that'd be like, I could see him being the kind of person who is, or old Bo Burnham, I guess. I could see being the kind of person who is more okay with, oh, they didn't see it. Well, fuck them. They're missing out on something great. In a way that
Yeah,
I
for
don't
sure.
necessarily think that new Bo Burnham would.
Yeah. He's settled down in a good way, I think. I'm excited to see what he does after this.
Me too.
And
I
what
really
sort of-
want him to do more earnest stuff. Like I would love just a straight ahead Bo Burnham musical, straight ahead Bo Burnham pop song. Eighth Grade
Yeah.
is still a comedy, but it's a lot more earnest.
I need to see it still. Like,
Have you never seen it?
no, I was gonna watch it before this, and then I didn't have time to.
Yeah, I haven't seen it since whatever 2018. I wanted to rewatch it and never got around to it for this week. But yeah, it is definitely very good, really good movie, and it is definitely one that I think does hit that sweet spot of if you are not super familiar with Bo Burnham, you would not think this is a Bo Burnham movie.
Yeah.
But if you are, there is enough of his obsessions and worldview and approach that I think seep out or are visible in the product in a way that is not distracting or incongruous.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I recommend that. I recommend Pretend That You Love Me. I recommend Inside if you've listened to this all the way through and have not seen Inside. You probably should, because I think it'll end up being shorter to watch Inside than listen to this episode, depending on how much
Probably,
I edit.
yeah.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I think that's about it.
Nice. If you are living inside of your guest house during the middle of a pandemic, one option is make a wildly technically proficient, maybe special, maybe movie. Who knows? Who can say? The other option, though, is don't do any of that hard work. That sucks. You can instead just listen to the A-Dub Club a lot, wherever fine podcasts are found, whether that is Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Apple Podcasts. You can also find us at our website, which is theadub.club. That's theadub.club. There you can find our topics guide, where there is all the different things that we talk about in a big, handy little list. If you click on a thing that interests you, you will find all the episodes where we talk about that thing. You can also find our starter guide, which are some episodes that we think are particularly good. If this is your first one listening to and you don't want to listen to 30 of our episodes, but you maybe would be down to listen to like 4, starter guide, perfect for you. You can of course get in touch with us because, like Bo Burnham talks about, the communication over the internet via for-profit corporations is great, and there's no problems with it. So you can tweet at us at the AW Club. That's at THEAWCLUB on Twitter. You could also email us at theawclub@gmail.com. That's THEAWCLUB@gmail.com. I believe that is everything.
That's that. A-Dub Club out.
Club out. The Jeffrey Bezos songs.
Yes. Which were so... Oh, sorry, my cat tried to kill me.
But we got on mic this time.